That was
Okay, Fred. Thank you so much for organizing your traffic time and your belly time and your brain time and your heart time to be here for truly like our first town hall. Actually, since we've come back into twice a year in-person meetings. I could be incorrect by that, but David can let me know. And but we definitely have received some questions of curiosity of what is going on in the shifts and changes with the Interim Unified Agency of PCUSA, our denomination, and also in particular around global mission. And so thank you for coming. I am going to just invite our colleagues, but also have them give your own introduction of Wade. But I am grateful for their heart and their servant leadership heart, each individually. Ellen comes to us from Louisville, in Louisville. And so any questions about Louisville, you can ask her as well. But she has been a beloved servant and minister and missionary in this denomination for a while. And so you can hear more about that from her. And I just am saying this because she will know what she's talking about, okay? And then also, some of you should already recognize, but she is ours, so, but we don't own her, right? She is part of National Capital Presbytery as a minister member and also the director of Compassion, Peace, and Justice of PCUSA with the Interim Unified Agency. Reverend Denise Anderson as well. Reverend Ellen Sherby, sorry, I didn't say that all the way. And so this comes to us, one, as a favor, thanks to Cy, once he gets on here.
In the waiting room.
Oh, he is.
Oh.
David, do you mind? Oh, never mind. I can do that. Sorry. I didn't mean to. Cannot do it backwards, though. He's not in there.
You might not be a host. So Dina needs to be. Oh, you are a host.
Okay, I will figure this out.
No.
No, he said he was. Only presented that.
Cy is going to be coming in. Hey, Patrick, come and have a seat. Welcome,
Yeah.
visitor.
Hello,
Welcome to the town hall. I love it. You know it's gonna go work when you hear Julie's laugh. Like this is my favorite. This is my heartthrob. So when Cy does come, I'm gonna leave it to y'all to introduce him as well. But Cy has also been a great colleague for me as well. With my role, I'm Reverend Tara Spooler McCabe, sorry, and I'm the Director of Congregational Development and Mission, and I serve your congregations, along with my colleagues David Baer, who's just left, John Molina Moore, Dina Bickle, our Director of Communication, and also Gabrielle, our interim right now of office admin, and also Heather Deacon for business and finance. So you are here because something intrigued you by the announcement on the town hall. And so thank you again for getting here. And I'm just gonna ask Ellen and Denise to take it away. And I will hold this in case you tell me that Cy is there. Okay.
Still work.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Denise and I are really glad to be here. Thank you for making time for us to be with you. As Tara mentioned, my name is Ellen Sherby, and so I used to work in what was the Office of World Mission. I was a mission coworker for a number of years in Nicaragua, and then served in Louisville since January 2009. Till now. So I've been serving the church for 25 consecutive years and got involved with the PCUSA as a volunteer in the 1990s. I would just want to add to that introduction, like one of the things I'm really interested in is how we can kind of continuously be thinking about what mission is and what partnership is really important to me. And in my years of service with the church, I've learned a lot and worked with a lot of different people to help us think about the paradigm of mission in different ways. think about, and I'm sure many of you are on that same page of not thinking of it as like an us to them, but doing something together where God is already at work has been a model and an understanding for me that been important to me. So that's just a little bit about me. So as of end of March, many of you, I would expect most of you know, the World Mission Office officially was sunsetted, so to speak, but it doesn't mean we're not involved with partners, that we haven't been involved with partners in many other ministries outside of World Mission. And it doesn't mean that the new expression of, now it's called Global Ecumenical Partnerships. We are also involved with and will be involved with partners through a new model that we're beginning to build. So that's just kind of a snapshot introduction. I think more than anything, we probably just want to hear what your questions are and try to answer them and to listen to you and dialogue with you. But I don't know if you want to add anything about what you are bringing today, or people already know you, it sounds like, so.
Everybody.
Everybody else.
No.
Never saw her before in my life.
Well, and also just to be clear, so Denise is the director, like Tara said, of Compassion, Peace and Justice. And also in this new model, even though I'm in the Global Ecumenical Partnerships area, I'm also being supervised by Denise, which is really exciting. So we're working closely together, and that's why the two of us are here. That just is kind of the long and short of that.
I guess I have a question. How did this, I know about the change at the top of the merger. But why was it thought that there needed to be a change in the global mission?
That's a good question. So, and some of this maybe you've already read a little bit about in some of the articles, but there's really two main streams, and I'd love for you to add on what I'm going to say. But so there's one thing is just the model and exploring how we're involved globally. As was mentioned, I was a mission co-worker in Nicaragua, and I think it was a really good step out of Presbyterian mission that we used to have through like the 1950s, where we would have mission stations in different places, and there'd be like maybe a couple hundred Presbyterian missionaries. And so that was a model of just, I think there were nuances to that even then, where I think partnership was being explored even then in some new ways. But starting from the late 50s until now, the main model has been having mission co-workers. And I think so one of the things that has been helpful for me to think about as we step forward into the new model is that that model, where it was good, it wasn't fully reciprocal in the sense of being able to make space for partners around the world, so churches or nonprofits, to serve in the US or in other places in the same way. Like the Methodists have a everyone to everywhere model, and we've never been able to do that. We've had shorter term programs that have brought the global church here to the US from other countries.
International peace.
Like international peacemakers. There's been a Mission to USA program. My husband is from Honduras, and we met in a short-term, like 10-month program in the 90s called Reconciliation and Mission that brought together Central American people with US people together, and we served in each other's contexts. And there have been other models over the decades, but we haven't had that kind of reciprocity and mutuality. And I think model is one thing, and hearing from partners that they were interested, some partners, not like we've heard from all, let's say 500 plus different church partners that PCUSA has, but like wanting to relate in a different way. And kind of, to me, it's like a clearing, kind of like okay, we did this work well in many regards, and it's time to look for a new way forward. So that's one thing. And then the other piece of that is it wasn't financially sustainable as our church is growing smaller. If you put those two things together, I've often wondered over the years, couldn't we do an everyone to everywhere kind of model? Like what if we had all the money in the world to do that? I don't know if the PCUSA would have gone that direction, but it's really between those two things that I would emphasize. Add anything to that?
I think you answered it plenty sufficiently. I mean, maybe as other questions arise, and
So what other questions does that bring up for you?
Yeah, can you talk about the global ecumenical partner?
Sure.
I'm circling ecumenical. I mean, I know what that means, but I don't know what it means here. And just the basic responsibilities and how those pick up what the mission coworkers used to do and what
Sure.
it doesn't.
Yeah, so let me clarify that too, that there's Global Ecumenical Partnerships is like the name of the ministry area.
Okay.
And within that, I think what you're referring to are the Global Ecumenical Liaisons.
That's it, yeah.
So the short name for that, the acronym is GEL. I think that was intentional to kind of think about how we're bringing the world together, because there's a group of Global Ecumenical Liaisons that are US focused and a group that are internationally focused. And just recognizing that the world includes everyone, includes the US, and the world is also in the US. So I don't have, even though I'm managing, I didn't say this, I don't think earlier, I am managing the team of the internationally facing Global Ecumenical Liaisons, who at this point, I think there's 8 Global Ecumenical Liaisons with room for 1 or 2 more. And all of those folks were people who were already serving internationally. Most of them had been mission coworkers. Most of those mission coworkers had been regional liaisons. And so there's many regards in which some of them feel like their work might be similar, but we're also trying to keep really open to how the Spirit is moving and being aware that the role will not be exactly the same as it has been. And then some of you, is the name Cheryl Barnes ring a bell for some of you? Okay, so Cheryl Barnes was a mission coworker in Malawi and then became the coordinator for Africa, kind of the Africa desk of the PCUSA. And she and I worked closely together in World Mission until the change, and we're still working closely together because she's now the manager for the US focused Global Ecumenical Liaisons. And basically I think we want to kind of connect the dots, if you will, between global partners, diaspora communities from different places in the world here in the US, and also other communities that are not diaspora, but different ethnic communities in the US that are indigenous to the US as well, or part of the US culture, but not from other places in the world. We want to connect with thematic work too. So we're still developing the model, but one way we see it developing is like around the issue, say, of migration and human trafficking could be one thread that is really something we need to look at worldwide, including the US. And there's plenty of other examples of just like topics we could name right now together where you could say, let's not have silos with US here and international here. Yes, there are 2 different teams, but we're working as one. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but those are the directions we're trying to head in.
And I think, and I'll say something, and then I want to make sure that we introduce Sai.
Yes.
I'll also say, Patrick, too, that we are trying to broaden the church's engagement ecumenically and globally beyond disparate projects throughout the world that may or may not have had much of a correlation or connection or cooperation, right? So that's our hope with this new model as well. I just wanted to make sure that Sai had an opportunity to introduce himself.
Sorry. All these years of using Zoom, still trying to find the mute button. I think I'd learned where it is by now. Hi, everybody. My name is Sai Hughes. I am your stewardship officer for the Presbytery. I serve regionally. Until about a week ago, it was the Southeast, but now it's the entirety of the East Coast. So we're not the only ones that are changing. But my role is simple. I'm your resource. If you've got questions or need follow-up or you walk away from this meeting and something pops into your head, tomorrow afternoon or something like that, you can always reach out to me and I will do my best to track down that answer for you, or connect you with a resource or subject matter expert. I'm grateful to Ellen and Denise for giving up their time. I really wish I could be there. I don't know what happened. My flights just magically poof went away, and when I tried to reschedule, they were really expensive. But in any case, I'm grateful to be able to sit in and listen and learn too. This is new for me as well. So I really wanted to be a part of this so I could hear some of your questions and some of their responses. It's helpful for me as well in my work. So I'm very appreciative of you not only doing this, but also accommodating me and letting me hop in via Zoom. It's really gracious and I'm grateful for it. So thanks.
Yeah, hold on, go ahead.
You were first.
Oh, thanks. Just kind of following up on that question, about a third of my congregation's from Ghana and Cameroon. And that, I understand my congregation used to have a partnership with a couple of local churches over there. And with some of the increased civil war, like in Cameroon and some issues in Ghana, some of these local churches over there want to reestablish some of that contact and partnership. Do we have anybody in those countries or that is working with Africa as a whole, or any resources in that area, somebody that I can talk to?
Yeah, so we have a global ecumenical liaison based in Africa, and we're going to be hiring for one more. But Doug Tilton is based in South Africa, and he's serving as a global ecumenical liaison based in South Africa. And we're hoping and praying that we can get somebody else in kind of further
north.
Yeah, because it's a pretty big continent. So, yeah, so I think he could be a person who could be a resource person.
Thank you.
Can you tell me who the 8 are who are still on board?
Yeah, sure. So Doug Tilton, I mentioned, then Doug Dix and Luciano Kovac. Luciano was the area coordinator for Middle East and Europe. So he and Doug Dix are going to be working in Middle East and Europe. Kabi Palm, who's in the Philippines. Kathy Chang, who's in the Philippines, but will be relocating to the US, but still serving in Asia. And Kurt Esslinger, who's in Seoul and will be staying in Seoul. Those are the 3 that'll be based in Asia and the Pacific. And then Jed Cobal and Jose Manuel Capella Prats are Latin America, basically. So I think the way that they've decided is kind of dividing that up. I mean, I think they'll all kind of support each other in each region, but Jed is more focused on South America, south of the Caribbean basin. And did I say Jed? Nobody said Jed.
You did say.
Okay, good. And then Jose Manuel is in Puerto Rico and will stay in Puerto Rico, and he'll be working with Central America and the Caribbean basin. And as far as the national group goes, Jose Manuel's wife, Vilmarie Olivieri, Cintron Olivieri, she's also obviously with him in Puerto Rico, and she's one of the national folks. So I want to name her. Also national is Cindy Carell. Some of you may be familiar with that name. She used to be based in Haiti and then later Dominican Republic. She'll be one of the national or US facing global ecumenical liaisons. And Joseph Russ has been in El Salvador and will be focused on, I think, some synods out west. And then there's somebody named Rachel Anderson who used to work with Africa office and then with an office that I was in previously. So those are like all the former World Mission people. As I mentioned, Cheryl Barnes is also a former World Mission person who's in those positions. And those 2 offices, the US and the international, are supported by very seasoned kind of programmatic assistants, if you will, Christina Pitts and Emma Johnston. So those, I don't know how many of those names are familiar to you. And we really can't give the names of the people who didn't continue. And I also just want to underscore that some people were invited into the new model and made some choices they just discerned that it wasn't for them. And so we can't give that menu. Some people want to know, like, was so-and-so offered? And we can't, that's really their story to tell if they want to share it. Sorry, I can't like give the kind of the other list, but that's who's remains. And there's 3 young adult volunteer site coordinators. Well, there's actually 4 who are based internationally that were also mission coworkers. So Hey Young Lee, who's married to Kurt, Dessa Casada Pong, who's also in the Philippines, Jenny Valles, who's in Peru with Jed Cobal, they're married, and James Martin, who's like US-Mexico border. So those international YAB site coordinators will also be connecting or serving in a way as global ecumenical liaisons too.
Well, that's not Julie's.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of follow-up questions. So the US facing folks, are those people who would be making connections? Like, I'm wondering about, what Ken's talking about with his congregation. Are those people who'd be making connections between immigrant communities here in the US and the church? I'll let you answer that first.
Well, that's a great question. And it kind of feels like you were planted there to ask that. Because,
Great question.
another part of the US facing group that I haven't mentioned yet are the they're called Intercultural Congregational Associates. And those are staff that have worked for many years. They're part of our racial equity and women's intercultural ministries ministry. They are now kind of in a process of, they're reporting to Cheryl Barnes. And they're sort of becoming part of that US facing team together with those 4 that I named that are former World Mission staff. So yes, they will be making those connections, and how they'll do that and how they'll divide up the work is in development still. So likewise for the international, we're just still in process. This is all so new and kind of raw, and we're trying to bring a team together. So there's a lot of work we have before us.
And I guess my other question was, in terms of, how we think about and talk to our congregations about special offerings and where that money goes, do any of the special offerings support what's happening in this new model, thinking particularly of Peace and Global Witness or One Great Hour?
You would do better.
So, and I'm a tag team sign in just a second. So, and yeah, Peace and Global Witness, historically supported our peacemaking ministry, which has moved to the Office of Public Witness, right? One Great Hour of Sharing supports Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, Presbyterian Hunger Program, and the Presbyterian Committee on Self-Development of People. That's all what Compassion, Peace, and Justice, the ministry area that I direct, is part of. And that still remains the same for this year's offerings, but as you may know, next year, our offerings are going to be broadened where the church is being invited to give to special offerings on like a need-based, an issue-based model, so that we can potentially distribute that offering across the agency where it's most needed. I mean, Sai doesn't manage our special offerings, but he can add to whatever I've just said if he wants to.
Yeah, I think that's right on. I think with the unification of the Office of the General Assembly and the Presbyterian Mission Agency, and the changes, kind of put forward during General Assembly last summer, we wanted to be our office, our special offerings team wanted to be responsive to those changes. And it really looked like there was an intent to break down some of the more traditional silos around some of the offices. And we know when we say something like immigration, that's not just one office and one ministry that's working on that. That crosses lots of different lines, from the Office of Public Witness to Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, and to Self-Development of People, and to the Hunger Program, and all along. And so working with special offerings, working with this assembly action, and redeveloping these special offerings around some of these causal type issues. And you'll start hearing more and more about that, I think, as we get into the summer, because we don't want anybody to be surprised. We want to be sure people know where their offerings are going and how they're being used. We know that through assembly action, there was some granting component requirements from those special offerings. We want to make sure everybody knows how to access those and apply for those grants as well, from a local perspective also. And so lots of changes coming, but at the same time, we were trying to really be intentional about giving the new Interim Unified Agency all the flexibility it needed when it came to decision making and how those resources were going to be deployed. Because it's not just a good idea, it's the law. If a dollar is designated to a specific use, it has to be used in that way. So the broader the definition of that is, the more flexibility we have in the system. And so that was kind of the intent behind the assembly, and the intent behind our work as well, driving that. But I think as we get closer to the fall, you're going to be really sick of hearing from us about how we're going to communicate all of those changes prior to 2026.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you see congregations working with and through the liaisons under this new model?
Well, I don't know exactly yet how it's going to work, but I think overall our hope is to kind of help expand the ways in which we're engaging in mission, kind of throw the net wider or make kind of a bigger community of people who are involved. So that we really can hold on to that truth that we're all called to serve, we're all called to mission and ministry, and make that more of a reality. And that's not very specific. I don't know yet exactly what it would look like. I mean, there was a story last week that's a really well-written story about Denver Presbytery and Zimbabwe Presbytery. It's a really rich, long, but really well-written Presbyterian news service story. I don't know if anybody saw that, raise your hand. No, really beautifully written. And maybe that's like maybe one story, one example of a presbytery to presbytery, international partnership where a lot of people are involved on both sides. And there's not there wasn't a mission coworker, prior to the end of World Mission that was instrumental in that. It was more grassroots. So I think that's where we're headed generally, if that helps. I don't know if you want to.
And Mark, I'll also say that the opportunity that we have is to hear from you all as well, to gain a clearer picture of how you would find it most helpful to relate, because what we want to do and what we have found often happens in our previous model is that the mission co-worker who was doing really good work wherever they were, it was their work to do, and we just sort of supported it financially and with prayers. Might there be opportunities for us to be closer to that work than not that writing a check is unimportant, amen, but maybe that's not all we can do. Maybe we can deepen the relationships that we have with our partners, because even in our previous model, it was hard for our mission co-workers to just carry that all by themselves.
Well, and I would offer that within this presbytery, just recently, the way it has evolved is there's been the Global Mission Network or team, right? But also a myriad of other congregations, and are now 102 congregations that within that. So there were congregations that are in relationship with mission coworkers, but the Global Mission team never knew who that was. They've done their, as a presbytery level, and Mark knows this because he was on the committee, and the other Mark who's chair, like, they know that there's always been a reach out through our presbytery vehicles, but there has been historically a disconnect of knowing who's on first and who's on second, even within this presbytery and global mission relationships. Some of them have solidified partnerships through the Global Mission Network, but then there's been others. And yes, that's also been about budgets, right? So we haven't known, as Sai was pointing out, where is all the money going? Like sometimes, because some churches have their own, and they were direct PCUSA mission coworkers that the Global Mission Network never knew about. And then vice versa. So and the mission committees over the years has tried multiple different dispositions to try and solidify that. And it's just been hard. So shaking things up personally has been helpful, because look at all these people that are in this room, and I didn't know there were this many people interested. After 5-6 years working with these committees. Yeah.
Well, using the Zimbabwe model that you talked about, how would a congregation, if they had it, decided that they wanted to reach out to a particular country, go about doing that?
I think that there could be a place there where the Global Ecumenical Liaison might be a point of contact in some cases. I don't know that it always would necessarily be.
I guess one issue I would see, one problem, in my opinion, would be that a church from National Capital might relate to a church in Uganda, let's just say, that is not kind kind of a sister church to, or reformed, sort of like, not that it had to be, but you know, compatible with our theology perhaps. For instance, in Madagascar, the church and the Presbyterian Church, the
JJKM.
yeah, and the Presbyterian Church are very compatible. But
Right.
how can we make see that compatibility would continue?
Well, I think that maybe the first question, if it's a relationship that's starting, I mean, there might be some questions there for a general, or rather a global ecumenical liaison, and maybe they would have other points of contact to help folks think about the questions they're asking themselves of whether this is a match that would work or not. I mean, likewise, you might have a very large church or very wealthy, presbytery or congregation trying to partner with a church elsewhere that maybe it's a much smaller, it's so different. So there could be differences theologically or in many other regards that could just make them kind of a rough match. So I think that's the kind of conversation that could start with the global ecumenical liaison, but not necessarily only with them. Maybe they would point you to other people who in the US or in other countries who kind of engaged in those partnerships to be thought partners or gather people in virtual or face-to-face meetings to kind of work on thinking through some of those questions. So it's a little harder if it's a partnership that's already started and trying to keep that, because sometimes, I mean, I remember when I was in Nicaragua, I worked with partnerships that was one of my main roles, was working with partnerships with SIPOD in Nicaragua, the Council of Protestant Churches there. And sometimes we learn about churches in the US that just like started a partnership. And then they were coming to us a few months later saying, hey, we started this thing. Can you help us? And we would try to accompany them in that, but it was like, sometimes it was like such a poor idea. Like it was like, you guys shouldn't have even started dating. Like,
So what I'm hearing is there is a helpful, through a general conversation, a start with a rubric of really
So-
doing some dating and some pre-dating of like, let's understand what makes a healthy match might be. It's still a congregation is able to decide, but at a presbytery level and at a PCUSA level, we would have, and a big part within our presbytery level has been the rubric that the Global Mission Network has around their matching grants for partnership pieces. Like, there is a rubric that we strongly recommend as you engage in an international or global mission relationship or partnership. That doesn't mean that's the only way, but it may mean that it doesn't involve at a mid-level council or a PCUSA council.
And we need to know about those resources. I think that's where
Send you
that
the link.
conversation with you all, either congregationally or presbytery wide, like, what can we learn from you that we can also, sort of from a bird's eye view or a networking view from a national office, share with other presbyteries and congregations? Were you gonna jump in?
I think what you said is really powerful, and yeah, I think the benefit here is that even though the model is changing, even though the name and the previous model go away, these partnerships remain, because we've had them for eons, right? Like we just don't throw away our friends simply because we have to downsize our house, so to speak, or we have to change neighborhoods. So I think the gift here is that we're not going in this completely ignorant. Like, we still have a wealth of relationships that we have taken very good care to nurture over the years, and not just through World Mission, but through other ministries of the church, through PDA, through self-development of people, through the hunger program, through Diana Wright's office, the Office of Ecumenical and Interreligious Relations. Like, we have had throughout the now unified agency so many points of relationship with our sibling churches throughout the world, and thankfully we don't lose those here. Hopefully we spread them out a little bit more.
How will you keep in touch with them?
through our liaisons and through
The other offices.
and that's, and through the other offices that, that I just mentioned, that continue to support those relationships as well.
I just want to give a shout out PW and this Presbytery. I know I meet NGOs that have grants from PW, Presbyterian Women, that, you know, we don't know all the time with Insight, but I just want to give a shout out. They've been involved with global ministries and missions as well in this Presbytery.
And they're a different entity of the PCUSA, however, we're one church.
That's right. Amen. One God, one Lord, one church.
I'm curious
Oh,
about.
wait,
how-
sorry. A hand was raised over here. I saw Beth and then Leslie. Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask if you have a list of the partnerships that already exist between Presbytery to Presbytery or church to church in different countries.
I think, so I don't know if everybody could hear the question in the back. Could you hear it? It was whether or not we have a list of Presbytery to Presbytery or church to church partnerships around the world. And I know those lists exist. I don't know if they're completely up to date. That might be another good point of contact with you all as a presbytery and with other presbyteries, is for us to make sure our lists are up to date. Cause I know I used to see those lists years ago, and I know they're out there. So that's a homework for me to.
Having worked as the global mission chair here for a number of years, we had a hard time just finding out in the Presbytery who had partnerships.
Which is what I just said.
Yeah, it's hard to find
And-
out, yeah.
And even too, I know there are a lot of, I just call them road churches who are out doing things, doing a lot of mission work, and we don't even know anything about them until we find out.
Yeah.
Here or there. So it feels, you know, like there's a lot of mission work going on out there, but we're not organized as an entity to know. It's not good or bad, and it's all usually pretty good, but, it's just very hard to get a handle on that. I know personally, way back when I started a partnership through the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, I did that by contacting our General Assembly, the General Assembly over there and so forth. But after the initial, it was like everything went into a black hole. I stopped writing reports, but we continued the mission. In fact, very strong, but it's just, you know, what is the system? What are we supposed to be doing or not doing? I mean, our church now has a partnership. I don't know. Who knows, or I mean, I know who knows over there, the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, because they keep in touch. They keep in touch. Anyway, I just didn't know. Do we know what's going on? We don't know what's going on.
I mean, National Capital gets to know thanks to the money. So whenever the grants are requested, that's how the Global Mission Network team and with the Mission Coordinating Committee, that's how we know where a collection of a few handful of congregations are joining around Kenya or joining around Cuba or joining around Haiti, Malawi. Those have been some targeted, there's been other ones.
Yeah, and where are those networks? That's a good thing Tara mentioned, you know, because Kenya has a network.
Yeah.
Malawi has a network, Haiti has a network. I'm not sure others.
Yeah, so that's a good point too. Tell me your name again, I'm sorry.
This is Beth Brush.
Beth. So Beth is talking about mission or partner networks. Is that are most people here familiar with that? So the PCUSA, they don't belong to the PCUSA, but many PCUSA churches, starting as early as like the 1990s, started forming mission networks. Some of them have even been GA mandated, like what was the Israel-Palestine Mission Network was actually came out of like a 2004 GA mandate. But many of them have just kind of been sort of organically forming over the years of churches and presbyteries throughout the US that are usually PCUSA churches, and they say Kenya is a good example. So it's just different churches and presbyteries that are involved in mission in Kenya. And usually the way they started was because of connections with PCUSA partners there. Some networks have other relationships and other nonprofits or connections that they've made. If you want to find a list of the existing mission networks, the short web page address that I can give you is if you go to pcusa.org/mission networks. Mission networks with no dashes or dots or anything. Make sure you get the two N's in the middle, mission networks. And it's plural, and it'll bring you to a landing page. If you scroll down, there's an area of the page down below. It'll say like Africa, Middle East, Latin America, etc. And you can click and open it and you'll see the contacts, the names of the people, phone numbers. So those are people who are moderators or kind of conveners of these networks that are connected with the PCUSA, if that makes sense. Wait, I think first here and then there, yeah.
So I have a sense of how this is unfolding internationally, but you talked about the US facing ministry, working, reaching out and working with the African community. And I'm wondering how that is going to, I'm thinking of it like specifically, for instance, we have a number of international churches that are, that have, say, a Ghanaian church with a Ghanaian pastor, whom the church itself is kind of a diaspora community.
Sure.
And how is the US facing Global Mission Network thinking about engaging?
Some of that already exists and has existed for a while. So you talked about the Ghanaian communities that we have in National Capital Presbytery. They are already served by Princeton Baraha, who is the African Congregational Intercultural Support Associate. I know years ago, when I was serving in the Taiwanese church, May We Lie, who was the predecessor of Ralph Su, who was the Asian Congregational and Cultural Support Associate, was here regularly with those churches, and particularly with the young adult groups, getting them engaged at the national level. And so and just full disclosure, I used to be the acting director for racial equity and women's intercultural ministries. One of my big frustrations is that Presbyterians really didn't take advantage of that resource. Particularly those who had these congregations, or they called those associates when there was a problem, right? And Ellen, so that component has already existed. Ellen, if you want to expound upon the U.S. facing global ecumenical liaisons, they will be based in synods as a resource there. And I don't know if you want to talk more about what you were sharing.
I mean, yeah, what you just said is like, you're wondering how it will work in the US, and my immediate thought was, I'm wondering too. Because we're just kind of getting started, the ending of World Mission, it's not a hard and fast, like you turn the light off and then you turn the light back on, it's a new thing. There's still some work that we're wrapping up from what World Mission was. And then also at the same time, trying to bring this team together and start building this new model. So there's so much work we have. And that said, Denise pointed out that the US facing people that are new to the US work, they probably will be synod focused, but they're also looking at how they can be of support to those intercultural congregational associates that you mentioned, like Princeton and Ralph and others.
The challenge with them has always been that they're spread thin.
They're so few. So I think they're kind of exploring how will the intercultural congregational associates, will they also change their portfolio of work to look at synods a little bit, or will they just stick with communities that they've already been liaising and supporting? And then how will these folks new to the US work be supporting the work of the intercultural congregational associates? So we're sorting it out.
And
yeah.
Boss, I'd just like to give a shout out to Princeton. He's been on my phone call. I do not call him just for emergencies, but he has.
I didn't mean National Capital.
No, I just want to say Princeton is in relationship with several of our congregations in this presbytery. Doesn't mean that everybody in those congregations agrees with what Princeton is offering and directing to them. So that's another thing we all have to be mindful of. but Princeton has continuously accepted the invitation of the phone call. I just want to lift that up personally.
Yeah.
Yes, could you elaborate a little bit more on the mission networks under the Unified Agency? Will they be allowed to continue or encouraged to continue, or what role will they play?
Yeah, are you part of a network?
Yeah,
Which network?
well, Kenya.
Okay, awesome. Well, that was a good example then. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I actually just was on a call last week with leaders of Mission Network who are working in Africa. So it was like a group of many different Mission Network leaders. And I think mission networks are going to be really important because they bring together groups of leaders from different congregations and Presbytery. So I think that's a really smart way for us to be serving together and learning from each other. And I think the networks are going to be really important.
Great.
Yeah. Sure.
Can you tell us about the co-workers who are not continuing on, how, basically what their severance is?
I mean, I can't give details about it,
Right, I
but they were
understand.
given, their severance is just given to employees. It's commensurate with like fairness, but they're pretty kind. I mean, they give people time to figure out what's next. Pay with benefits for a period of time. So that's basically.
Yeah, and I do want to name too, that just, there's always grief, as some of us can, and perhaps in this room can attest to separation like this.
Yeah.
And I want to name that, and I want to honor that. And just, in some ways, there's not a severance package you can receive that can ameliorate that.
No, that's right.
That's true.
And I just want to name that too. I mean, change just comes with grief. And I think,
Yeah.
I don't speak for you, but I think I can speak for you
Yeah.
in saying that you grieve this. I grieve the change. Even as we are excited about what is emerging, it's still hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's people I've worked with for decades that I don't get to work with anymore. And so like personally, for sure. It's been hard professionally and personally. It's been a huge change too. It's like a huge model change. So we recognize that absolutely. And yeah.
I might have missed this because I missed the first like 10 minutes of this. But the church that I serve has been in partnership with a small village in Kenya for more than 35 years. That is in no way, I believe, part of whatever mission network there might be. So is there a way perhaps with this new model to expand what we've been doing, to bring other people in? Because I believe my church is maybe the only one supporting that.
Say more about what you're thinking. So are you wanting what your church is doing to feel like it's more part of sort of the community of global mission that's happening and to be seen as part of that? Or
I don't know. I don't think it's what I want. I'm just wondering what the possibilities are. It has been a very, very important mission of this church since the late 80s. We have more folks going over this in another month. They have a very close relationship. I mean, it's a school, they feed 200 kids a day. They have done water and electricity stuff. Like it's multifaceted. It's not affiliated with a church. It's all education based.
it's not
And
connected.
a medical clinic. Because it came out of work that one of our doctors did.
I see. Okay.
So I'm just wondering, in this new, I'm not even saying please adopt our thing. I'm just wondering, in this new model, is there the possibility for expanding or shifting some of those connections?
Yeah.
So what I can say, if you will.
Yeah.
So our relation in Global Ecumenical Partnerships is with ecumenical partners. And this sounds like a really worthwhile relationship, but one that is a little different.
Sure.
Outside of the bounds of that. That being said, again, World Mission / Global Ecumenical Partnerships is not the only way we relate around the world.
That's right.
There might even be some opportunities to support that ministry through one of our other programs. Again, not making any promises.
Sure.
This sounds more along the lines of what something else like maybe self-development of people might be about. So there are ways still to support Chevy Chase in some of these endeavors that don't have to do with GEP, right?
Right.
And also, I also want to say too, that the denomination is not here to police the relationships that congregations enjoy
Definitely.
globally. Like
Yeah.
that's not our intention
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
It's to strengthen the connections between those who are sitting in your pews and those who are sitting in the pews and in the offices of the ecumenical partners that we have been in relationship with and that we know and that we've had some mutual support with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that y'all are doing that.
I mean, just to be clear, I'm not asking on behalf of anybody. at the
I'm
church.
just putting it out there.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking what's possible, because, I mean, you know me, Denise, like, I'm always thinking, well, could we do this? Can we do that? What about this? How can we connect?
And we,
Like, let's expand. What could open up for possibilities if we were able to do that, if it were, so I just am wondering if that's even possible, or if it's like, no, our plan is really to stick with what we've been doing.
and I'm hoping too that all of us can think across the board more creatively about what the possibilities are,
Yeah.
even if that's not work that GEP has its hands in.
Adele, also, we invite you over to the Global Mission Network, because they do have the chance to connect with other congregations that don't have enough to make as much of an impact, and so they could connect with other churches who are doing the impact. So I don't know if that's already been tried, but I haven't seen
I
a
don't
grant.
either.
Yeah, I haven't seen a grant come through, but it's always a $5,000 match for a partnership, a mutual partnership across the spaces. So
I'll bring this information back.
you got it. You got it.
Thanks.
A lot of discussion about things that we're fairly familiar with as individuals, perhaps as groups in the room. But I don't think the rest of our congregations really have much information on this. How do we get the word out on our successes? And if they're failures rather than successes, how we're moving on from those failures and learning from them.
You're speaking about what's
The
happened
whole
just
thing,
now, the whole thing.
big picture, not down low.
Was that question heard well in the back?
No.
So the question has to do with, maybe not all our congregation, like we in this room are here and we're hearing this information, but our congregations maybe are not. They're not as aware of what's going on. How do we get the information out? How do we share about, what's going on, what's working, maybe what hasn't worked or what have you? And I think I know there've been some Presbyterian news stories that have gotten out there. It's been some weeks since we've heard from that source. And we also know not everybody reads Presbyterian News Service.
Right.
So we are working really hard now. There's some new folks in place helping us with some project management as we move forward. Communications they're producing some kind of clips from some video interviews. So there's different ways. We're trying to figure out different ways of getting the word out.
And we also have a partner inside. And
Yeah.
all of our colleagues. And has the name change been made official?
Stewardship and fundamental.
Oh,
You're muted.
he knows.
Yeah, he
We're allowed to tell the name in settings like this. I saw a draft of a PNS article this morning, actually, so hopefully it's imminent. So we're now stewardship and funds development as opposed to mission engagement and support.
But they are also a partner in interpreting the mission and ministry of the church too. And Sai has offered himself in ways that might be helpful.
Yeah, I tell folks all the time, I am your resource. I'll throw my name in the email in the chat and all that. But if you've ever got any questions and you just need a starting point, I probably don't know the answer to your question, but I know who might know the answer to your question, so I can connect you. And I'm very happy to do that.
I have appreciated the new format side of the quarterly reports that are coming out sometimes with the buckets of information that are being sent. So, that's been something that for some reason now I'm getting at my desk now. So I think we've also learned at a Presbytery level how to redirect some emails that were going in other places and now they're coming. And so Dina and I are learning how to capture what we can capture and put into whether it's a bi-monthly thing for the Thursday mail, or it's more helpful to be on Instagram and Facebook. So that's been a new like 1 month kind of.
I snuck your name onto my list, so that's a new. And we are actually actively having conversations about how to make it better and more useful, because we know, for all of you guys, you get way too many emails from way too many places. We're doing our best, but we want to try to get you the best, most useful information, so we're not clogging up your inbox either. But so I'm glad you find some use for it. That makes me happy.
I have a question. Do I have time to ask a question?
Yes, we have 1 more minute.
Oh my goodness.
so-
Well, I'll ask the question, then I'll give you my email, so if you can't answer it now, because you probably won't have time, but I guess we want to know what we need to know. Like, what is it that you would want to tell us you think we don't know? Or that, or what is it that you need from us, from a kind of a central agency or office? And so I'm gonna give you my email, and you're free to reach out to me. It's Ellen, so ELLEN .Sherby, SHERBY, Ellen.Sherby @PCUSA.org.
And in the next Thursday mail, I'm doing a recap of today's discussion. So it'll have some of the emails and links that I've captured from today.
So Sai is a good contact. I mean, there's a lot of us that you can reach out. Just bear with us if we don't respond right away. Sometimes if there's lots of meetings, or like right now that we're traveling, I'm just buried in email right now. So I feel I might not get back to you right away, but it's not because I'm ignoring. So please reach out.
Thank you all again. This is probably just the beginning, but hopefully, as Ellen offered and Sai offered, oops, sorry, man. That when you might have more questions of curiosity and clarity now that you've started, and it always helps to be in person. So thank you very much for this time. And I've asked my colleague David to please close us with prayer.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, your love extends throughout the world. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to enter into partnerships that span continents, that span cultures and languages. We thank you, O God, for this time together to reflect on how we are to live into these partnerships in a new way. And we thank you for the ministry of Denise and Ellen and Sai and every person in this room. God, bless these efforts, bless our ministry, bless our relationships, so that all things might serve your praise and glory. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
So everyone, if you haven't yet, it looks like some of y'all have, but please be sure to register before you go and sit down at the round tables in the Stone Hall. Okay? Thanks.